Welcome to MarketTamer.com. Today we'll discuss the psychology of trading, and we'll begin with our first aspect, which is competition. So the first thing to think about is maybe when you were a child. Just think back to when you were playing with one of your friends and somebody came in, maybe a parent came in and said, hey, we've got some cookies. What happened? Well, you'd probably both come over, grab the cookies, enjoy the cookies, move on and start playing. But now think about it if somebody came in and said, hey, there's one cookie for the two of you. What would you do? Well, this usually leads to greater competition. And it actually doesn't really change as we grow older. There's an inherent human trait, which is that if there's not a lot of something and there's a lot of people wanting it, we tend to want it more. And sometimes that will mean we'll end up paying a higher cost than necessary. For example, let's say we had 6 corporate executives who are told that they are moving building, and in maybe one of the buildings we find that there are only 3 rooms with windows. Well, what happens? Typically the executives will start to compete over the rooms with the better views. In the stock market it's no different. If we find that there's a news event and investors rush in to purchase a stock, often we want to purchase it too. There's an element of competition to get what others have, even though there's a limited supply of it. And of course in the stock market, when a lot of people want something, there's a lot of demand, the price rises, and this means that there's a risk of us paying too much. So lesson 1 is be very cautious about purchasing at any cost when there's a lot of competition. In fact, what you want to do is always be very, very cautious when there's a news event and a lot of demand, because there's a high risk that if you don't pay attention to your own inherent desires and urges to jump in, that you may end up paying too much. Next on the list, we'll talk about probably one of the most important aspects of the psychology of trading, which is overcommitment. And that is, think about Las Vegas, think about gambling. What happens to a gambler after the first loss? Well, often they engage in revenge gambling, which is they want to get that money back. And that's really no different in the stock market. If you think about taking a loss in a position, what is the natural tendency? Well, it's to try and get the money back. Nobody likes to take a loss. And one of the reasons is that it forces one to admit that one was wrong. And nobody likes to admit they're wrong. So in order to get past this, just think about any of the great traders or investors in the world. Think about somebody like a Warren Buffett or somebody like a George Soros who have made billions of dollars. Did they do that? Did they make those billions without ever making a mistake? Absolutely not. And so for you, you can take comfort in that and realize that sometimes you will make mistakes, and that is okay. You must give yourself permission to make that mistake and recognize sometimes a loss will be taken, and that's okay. Sometimes we have to admit, hey, we were wrong, it's okay, we'll move on. And this actually ties into risk management, portfolio management, and never assigning too much to one single position. For those of you at MarketTamer.com, please check out Module 7 for more on that. And finally, we'll discuss the next term, which is scarcity, which is that people tend to think that there's not enough opportunities in the market on many occasions. For example, people tend to jump in and trade today and tomorrow and the next day because they feel that this might be the last chance to take advantage of this opportunity. And in fact, if we start to think in terms of abundance rather than scarcity, we'll recognize that opportunities to profit exist every day. And so that actually means that rather than trading too frequently, we can end up sitting back, remaining patient, waiting for an opportunity to arise, and not falling victim to this trait of scarcity. So finally, we'll just ask you, if you have questions on this, please don't hesitate to jump into classes, post questions on the forums, and visit us at MarketTamer.com, and we'll be delighted to help you out. Take good care, folks.